gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Her Sport Awards presented by Lidl. We are gathered here tonight to celebrate the 2024 Year of Sport, where Irish women have inspired a nation and truly made their mark. From European and World Championship success to the excitement of the Olympic and Paralympic Games, we've had groundbreaking excitement in both team and individual events, and there has been a true sense of Irish pride. The women we celebrate tonight are the leading lights in their sports, with stories of success, resilience and determination. Women who inspire at both local and national level, and some who have achieved in spite of the odds. In early 2018, I had an idea. I started a website, social media channels, and started sharing women's sports news, the beginning of Her Sport. Shortly after, I moved to New York, and while I was on a different adventure, I was trying in my spare time to keep Her Sport going. 2018 was a year where it was reported that just 4% of sports media coverage in Ireland was going to women's sport. I always felt there was a dream and a vision that had to be realised, that if I didn't commit to Her Sport in the right way, I would always regret it. I felt the world was truly letting girls and women down, and that my idea could make real change. This month marks 5 years since myself and Mohammed left our jobs and committed to building Her Sport, the business, to create an organisation that would change the game for girls and women in sport. I'm incredibly proud to share that in 2024 alone, we have featured over 900 different female athletes, their names, their faces, their stories. In just 5 years, we've made remarkable progress, creating meaningful impact and driving real change. But the truth is, we feel like we're only just getting started. We enter 2025 with a new excitement and energy, and we commence our next 5 years. And we start with great support and belief from our incredible partners. The Her Sport Awards presented by Lidl has grown into a powerful tradition, recognising and honouring the women and the volunteers who make the sport that we love possible. We are proud to continue this tradition and enter a new year alongside our incredible partners, Lidl, Gym Plus, Aya, Linwoods Health Foods, BPerfect Cosmetics, Energia, Adidas, Sport Ireland, Commission Man and UCD. A special thank you goes to our title sponsor Lidl, who since 2016 have invested nearly €10 million in supporting girls and women in sport through their partnership with the LGFA. Lidl's unwavering commitment and core values aligns with everything that we stand for at Her Sport, and we look forward to changing the game together. Whether you're here with us in person at UCD, watching at home on TG Cahir or watching online, thank you for celebrating tonight with us. I have one special thank you to an amazing friend who's travelled all of the way from New York to be here tonight and has been encouraging me over many cups of tea to shoot for the stars and dream big since the early days of 2018. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming our incredible MC, Gráinne McElwain.
Míle buchas, Niamh Tallon, fáilte riomh duine an seo nocht. Ihe Haribh spéisialta. Támuid an seo chun céilear a dhéanú bhléin mhór is sport na man. Agus such léirú agus ómós don na mrá spragúil atá anamna don na gradam Her Sport. We had another phenomenal year for Irish sport, and our female athletes were to the fore once more and shone on the biggest stage. Tonight we are here to honour them and to celebrate their success. We have 6 awards that we will be presenting, and just to remind you that they have all been chosen by you. Chronimid 2 mar sin leis an chéad gradam. And here are the nominees for the Her Sport Team of the Year, sponsored by Linwoods Health Foods.
The success of this team started 10 years ago, and they have honestly racked up more medals than I can count. An incredibly successful 2024 saw 3 medals at the Paralympic Games and another 3 medals at the World Championships just a few weeks later. The paracycling team of Katie George Dunleavy, Eve McChrystal, Josephine Healian and Linda Kelly are your winners for the Her Sport Team of the Year, sponsored by Linwoods Health Foods. We are delighted to have with us today Katie George Dunleavy to receive the award.
What do you think of that?
Thank you. I love your suit, by the way. As soon as you came on, I could see you. I said, I don't need anyone to show me to the stage because I could see
I'm
your
glittering.
sparkly suit. It's amazing. Yeah, this was wonderful. Thank you to Her Sport. I was actually, a little bit shocked when we said we were going to, when we were told we were going to win this, and the girls were all delighted. We've put in, really all our lives into cycling and the last few years, and to achieve what we've achieved in the last few years, especially last year. It's been amazing, and this is wonderful. Thank you.
Why were you shocked?
I think usually when it comes to parasport, we kind of don't get the recognition sometimes, and so I think that's part of it. We've been up for awards before in the past, myself and Eve, and we've achieved, we've got gold and silver at the Paralympics that sometimes other, non-parasports have kind of got the achievements ahead of us, but so that's why, really, yeah.
Well, it's an honour very well deserved here this evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
You have had such a successful career with Paralympics, and last year, of course, 3 medals, it was a phenomenal achievement. Did the success last year, though, Katie, did it feel different in any way for you?
I think every Paralympics is different. The journey is different getting there, the challenges, and last year was probably one of the most challenging years I've had, and I've been at it for 13 years. We had injuries and illnesses. It's mentally and physically was a really challenging year for me. And to come away with 3 medals. I mean, even with the challenges, I never lost focus on what I was aiming to do and what I was aiming to achieve. But you never know what's going to happen on the day. You never know how you're going to go, and you never know how your competitors are going to go. I think, when you've been at it for the number of years I've been at it, you kind of realise that actually all you can do is your best, and your best is good enough as well. And luckily we came away with some medals. So, yeah.
When you had that injury where it was a broken collarbone, and I think Linda as well, she suffered concussions too in the lead up to the games, how did you manage yourself? What techniques, what did you do to get yourself through that period and prepare for an Paralympic Games?
I'm a very positive person and optimistic, and I just thought, it could have been far worse, and I could see myself at Paris. I said, it's a broken collarbone, I'm a cyclist, I'll be training back on a bike soon, and I will do what I need to do to get myself back on the bike. And I was just grateful that it could have been worse, because cycling is a really dangerous sport, and I could have got concussed like Linda did in previous race, or I could have broken my hip or my leg or something else. So I just thought, I was grateful that, of course it was an awful accident, but cycling is dangerous, and I did break my collarbone, but it could have been worse. I was going to be back on a bike, and I was going to still be aiming for Paris. And it did, of course, alter my preparations. It changed everything, but all I could do was control what I could control and do what I could do.
Bring us back to when you were 11 years of age and you were told you had a condition called retinitis pigmentosa. What was that like, hearing that? And your parents decided to send you to a special school. So how did you feel about that? And what way do you feel maybe that school changed the trajectory of your life in a sporting sense?
Yeah, well, when I was 11 years old, I didn't really understand. I got told that, I can't see. And I was like, well, I can't see. I didn't really understand. But from my parents and my family, it was devastating news, because I got told that I'd be blind by the age of 30. So it was devastating news for them and a shock. But for me, I didn't understand, and I didn't want to be different, so I found it quite hard to understand. And I went to a special school for the blind and partially sighted. I didn't want to go, and I found that a difficult time as well. Being kind of away from home and new school. I was enjoying the school I was at, but actually that school gave me opportunity and encouragement to try out different sports and activities, and which I kind of threw myself into. I was an active child and I loved it, but through that I got into competitive sport, and really without that encouragement from that PE teacher and from my parents and that support, I wouldn't be where I am now.
And cycling, believe it or believe it not, wasn't your first love. It was rowing. So you had this dream to be part of the Paralympics with rowing, and it didn't work out for you. So coming from rowing into cycling, what was that like, and what were your first impressions of meeting everybody in the cycling world?
Yeah, I was in like love with rowing. I loved it, and I was so passionate about it. And I wanted to, when I realised, it was in the Paralympics in Beijing for the first time, I was like, oh, I'd love to go there. I want to go there. And I was kind of full-time training. And I got lots of injuries, setbacks. It wasn't meant to be, but I tried out, the cycling, and I got called out by the Irish paracycling coach to try out cycling, and I didn't actually know it was a sport for visually impaired, athletes. I didn't realise it was tandem racing at the World Championships and at the Paralympics. At first, I was a bit hesitant, but I realised, this is an opportunity. I want to take opportunities. It's an opportunity, and I'm so glad I took that, because one door closed, another opened, and I fell in love with it as soon as I was outside on the moving tandem, which can go very, very fast. I was like, this is amazing, being out in the open, and it's an amazing sport, and that special kind of element of the team with having a fully sighted rider on the front and a partially sighted rider or a blind sighted rider on the back is amazing, and the speeds we go and just that trust you have to have in each other, I find that just really, really special, and it's really exciting as well.
How difficult is it to get that trust?
I'm quite a trusting person, I find, and intuitive. So, it can be difficult. I've been through a few pilots after, when Eve couldn't make a few competitions, I tried a few other pilots out, or when she was going to go for retirement, which then she wasn't, and they didn't work out. It's a huge commitment from both riders. Sometimes it is difficult, but I've been so lucky to find Eve and Linda, and been a successful partnership with those two on the track and the roads, which has been amazing.
You've spoken a lot about wanting to talk about your sport, talk about disability. From speaking and from when you started off on this journey, have you seen a noticeable change in how people interact with disability and talk about female athletes?
Yeah, it's definitely improved, and even, with the media and recognition, that's improving, but it's still a way to go, I find. I think it's similar to women's sport. I think we have to sometimes achieve more to be recognised. It's the same with para and non-para. But it's a way to go, but it's definitely improving. I've been in the sport for 13 years, and in terms of the support, the money in it, in terms of, the cycling that I've been involved in, that's improved, and also just in Paralympics in Ireland, that's just improving, and, her sport are a part of that as well. So
that leads me on to another question. You are involved in the Worlds, I think, this year, but the $1 million question. LA 2028. And she said to me, I haven't really been asked that question very often, but we said we're among friends here tonight, so she might answer it for us this evening.
As soon as we got off the plane from Paris, we were asked about LA.
Where are you at with that decision, honestly?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm just taking this year. I'm going to see how this year goes. It's 4 years, which is it's a long time as a full-time athlete. It's a huge dedication, and anything can happen, but I'm going to take this year. I'm going to kind of assess. I'm going to work on other things this year, and of course I'm training for the World Championships. I want to retain both my titles on the road with Linda, but after that, at the end of the year, I'll know about LA, and I'll decide on that, and then I'll go for it. But at the moment, I'm not actually thinking about it.
Well, we wish you every success with that decision.
Thank you.
We all hope to see her back, of course, in 2028. Best of luck in the Worlds.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The Her Sport Young Athlete of the Year, sponsored by BPerfect Cosmetics, celebrates the rising stars who are shaping the future of Irish sport. 10 amazing nominees representing 9 different sports, a demonstration of the depth and talent from gymnastics to sailing, cycling to cricket. each and every athlete representing Ireland with great pride on the global stage. We have seen records, medals, determination and grit, and you can be sure these stars will continue to rise. I'm going to invite Danielle Collins up to award the Young Athlete of the Year on BPerfect's behalf.
Agus cad faoi bhléin a bhí ag an bhean óg seo as limnach. Bon airgid agus cré ua búte eici ag na cluiche Paralympiatha I Paris. The winner of the Her Sport Young Athlete of the Year, sponsored by BPerfect Cosmetics, is Roisin Rian. Roisin, cógáirdeas mór leat, go dé do áil faoin gradam seo.
Go húnta gur fád bhí sé Sarah gnóthach ach Sarah an bhadam, ag tosnú amach leis na cluichí Eorpacha agus an sin thug sé sin golóir muoín dom ag dolisteach go dtí na cluichí Paralympica agus chun teacht amach le gábán tom cósásta agus cósásta chun a bheith an seo anocht leis an dús seo.
The Paralympics, I mean, what a phenomenal achievement. When you won your first Paralympic medal, what was that feeling like?
Yeah, a kind of a surreal feeling, to be honest. And I think, what made it that bit more special was being able to go out and celebrate that with my friends and family. It was something that doesn't happen that much, I don't think. But, the Irish being the Irish, they got in there and I got to go out. And I suppose I had no idea how many people that I was coming out to. And there was so many of my friends and family that had come over. So I think, being able to celebrate it with them definitely made it that bit more special that night.
So when you said you went out, tell us a bit of the inside. What exactly were the celebrations like?
Well, no, it was really just going out and, getting to see them. And, I suppose there was a couple of people that I didn't realise was there. So, just getting to share that moment with them was very nice. But, after that, it was, a quick 15 minutes. And then for me, it was straight back in, finish all of the recovery and the behind the scenes that people don't see. And then, I had a couple of days off, but back to business then.
When you talk about the stuff behind the scenes that people don't see, bring us, a lot of people here, our athletes would understand with you. There are a lot of people in this room who don't understand what that is. So what exactly do you have to do? And do you ever feel lonely having to do this as well, Roisin?
Yeah, well, I suppose, I wouldn't say that I ever feel lonely because I have so many people around me the whole time. So, whether that's on a day-to-day in training, I have a absolutely brilliant squad of about 20 of us that train in Limerick, and they were all there in Paris, so that definitely made that extra bit special. And then, when I go away to competitions, I'm there, I'm enjoying myself, and I always say that I love to get out and race. So I think, for me, I'm always enjoying myself, whether it be in training, whether it be racing. Of course, there's always going to be those hard times, and when you, from a training side, when you don't want to get up, or if you have a bad race, but it's then being able to lean on those people that you have around you to kind of pick yourself back up in those times that may not be the best.
When you talk about the Irish support, what was that like, and the homecoming, and just the country went absolutely mad for all the Irish teams for both the Olympics and the Paralympics?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's something that was such a big difference, obviously, from this time round to Tokyo, with obviously being in Tokyo, having absolutely nobody there, literally so empty. You could pick apart the exact voices that were screaming for you, which was a couple of teammates, you know, then to this time where I'm going to say the Irish were probably one of the loudest there. You know, for such a small group of people in the grand scheme of things, you know, they really got behind every single person. And that made it so much nicer, you know. I'd never really experienced that of coming out to such a full arena, or, you know, I never raced, I suppose, in front of crowds like that. But I think, you know, that only spurred me on even more. You know, I walked out, heard them all, kind of gave a wave to the crowd. I suppose I didn't know where they were, but just listen, and I could kind of try find where they were. And then, you know, I think it was just knowing that everyone was there and the support that I had definitely gave me that extra bit more.
And then when you are training, so just give us an insight of the training that you have to do. And you're also in college as well, in UL studying. So how do you manage to balance the two of them?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, we have a really great programme in UL. I'm training in the National Centre in Limerick, and we have about 20 athletes, and a lot of us are all living together as well, you know, all college students living in college accommodation. Definitely makes it very easy living with swimmers, living with everyone who's kind of on the same time schedules and doing the same thing day to day. So that definitely makes it that bit easier. And, you know, I'm only a 5-minute walk from pool and 15 minutes away from college, so that definitely helps out a lot as well. But I think just surrounding myself with those people as well is kind of what makes the difference. And, you know, then it's organisation and being prepared and all of that logistical stuff to make sure that I can get the best out of both my training, my competing, and then also my studies as well.
So we have some younger members in our audience here this evening. If you could go back to your 11-year-old self, what would you say to that girl?
I suppose, you know, when I was younger, it was always a dream. It really was, you know, it was something that, you know, I feel like any young child who's in sport and who wants to succeed in sport, you know, to be able to get to the Olympics, the Paralympics, you know, that was always my goal. But I think, you know, it's just for those younger kids to keep going and to keep believing in yourself, you know, and I think just hard work will eventually pay off. Sometimes, you know, when I was younger, in the pool, I kind of felt like, you know, at times you weren't getting where you wanted to, but I think, you know, being patient and believing in yourself is key.
Just before you go, plans for this year, where are you at now for this rest of the year?
In very, very hard winter training at the moment. We've just come back off a nice, not nice 10-day camp where some very, very hard work was done. And, you know, so we're just at the really hard end of things at the moment, grinding winter training as they call it. But I've got a couple of competitions coming up and Worlds then this September, hopefully. So that's the next big one I've got my eye on.
Well, Roisin Gannairi an tálat agus míle buíochas is a bheith.
Míle mágat.
The Personality of the Year Award, sponsored by EA, is an award that recognises inspiration, determination and/or resilience. This person will have inspired beyond the sporting arena, achieved in spite of the odds, and wow, is this year's shortlist incredible. We have multiple moms who are just unstoppable, an iconic lift that made waves around the world, a woman who ran her 1,000th marathon when she ran Dublin Marathon in October, and shining lights who inspire us to dream bigger. Put your hands together for your nominees. We have with us tonight a Cork Camogie legend, someone you might know from Ireland's Fittest Family, and a new EA ambassador, Anna Geary, to present the award. Among an incredible field, this athlete, who is incredible on the field, whether it's camogie, Gaelic football or rugby, The winner of this award goes to a brilliant athlete and role model who demonstrates ambition, resilience and integrity. Admitting she didn't know that women's rugby existed, to getting a crash course on Irish Camp about the rules, to become an integral part of the Irish setup and natural leader. Faced with the challenge of injury, followed by the excitement of welcoming a new baby boy, returning to club rugby, then faced with another bad injury, working her way back to the pitch and then to the Irish team and having a cracker of a year. A very deserving winner of the Her Sport Personality of the Year award, sponsored by EA, goes to none other than Emer Considine.
Gorgeous more lad, rud súla sin.
Oh my God, I'm a cray. Actually, near cred me, go me on gradam show. Bhí me just like winter, no bhí me see fake and turn them on do crecha. Agus sásta bit an show nocht.
Well, gorgeous lad. Had you any idea? It was well kept secret. No idea that this was going to be
No
presented
idea.
tonight?
I was sitting there in my bag on top of me, and I was saying, Jesus, thank God, I haven't practiced any Irish, and. Cool me roasting ag glowert, and I was like, oh Jesus.
Well, she passed the test really well. You did a great job.
No, I killed them.
Well, they can keep a secret, that's for something. I mean, when you hear all the things that have been said about you, and like, what does that do to you, or how does that make you feel?
Well, I suppose I'm shortlisted with amazing women, and I'm not the only person that had a baby here tonight, but I looked at those other women across the board that are here, but it just, I suppose, proves the point that you can come back to sport after having a baby. And that was, I suppose, my main aim was to prove that my sporting career wasn't over as a result of having Caelan. And it was difficult, and I was chatting to Anna before this about, since I met her last, she has a baby boy as well, and how I wouldn't have done it without the people around me. So as much as people saw me come back on the pitch, a lot of people didn't see the behind the scenes work, and it wasn't just me, it was the organising of who's going to mind, who's going to pick up, how we're going to manage training. I remember early days, I was still feeding Caelan, and I had Ailish in the back of the car going down to Limerick with me to UL Bowes training so that I could feed him before training, go training, and then feed him immediately after training. So it's those kind of commitments that people don't see behind the scenes, and I wouldn't have come back on the field. And even the year that we had, like, the Irish women's rugby team got nominated for an award as well, and it was just amazing to be part of such an amazing squad that are going places in such a brilliant year with the World Cup so close to home in August and September. To be back on the pitch for me was it was amazing not to talk about being back in with Ireland, playing for Ireland, and then getting to go over to Canada and have such a great experience with the girls over there as well.
With that in mind then, and with what's coming down the track, how difficult a decision was it for you to retire from rugby?
It was so hard. There were so many different factors involved in retiring. We had moved our life from Dublin to Clare. I had, I suppose, given up the dream of playing for Ireland, the fact that it was so much easier to be in Dublin or in the HPC to train. Obviously I have a nearly 2-year-old, he's 2 on Monday. Full-time job, a new job, and I suppose life gets in the way in that we have a mortgage, and the reality of it is a woman in sport, I couldn't afford to give up my career when you have, I suppose, other life commitments at home, and it's going phenomenal ways, women's rugby and women's sport in general, but it still has so far to go to be equal with its male counterparts, and it's getting there, but I suppose it's a slow journey, and there's so many supports, there's so many broadcasters, media, Her Sport are doing amazing things for it, but it still has a long way to go. So it wasn't just one thing that allowed me to make that decision, and it was really difficult. But also there's a generation gap between me and some of the younger girls. Like when we were in Canada, like they're just doing TikToks all the time, and I'm like, I'm too old for this. And it was amazing and everything, but I was able to switch off for those few weeks that I was away with the girls. But my reality is that I've got a little baby at home who missed me loads, and I missed him. And when I thought about the World Cup and how much it would entail and how much selfishness it would entail, I thought about him, and I thought about my family, and and it made the decision quite easy.
I'm going to come back to that later on, but I want to go back to when you started rugby, because you came obviously from a huge GA background, played football, played camogie for your club and for Clare. When you got involved in rugby, first of all, tell us how that happened and what was your initial impression of it?
I got involved through just being scouted at a time where they were looking for women's rugby players with the sevens, and a lot of rugby players have started off playing sevens. And I wasn't very good at the start. It was really difficult. I was really bad. And I suppose I thought about quitting so many times, but with good sports around me, like Mum told me to keep going, and Dean was like, I should give it a go, you know, keep trying it. And I kept with it. I played sevens for a couple of years, and then I got brought into the 15 squad. And again, you're starting off learning a whole different game because it's completely different to the sevens game. So yeah, it was really challenging, and then I ended up playing with Munster and playing with UL Bows, and it brought me places I never imagined it would bring me, especially with the sevens. You get to travel around and you're all over the world traveling, and even with the Six Nations, getting to, I suppose, play in such an esteemed competition. It's the thing, you know, you grow up watching Six Nations games, and that was my experience of rugby, but it was on the men's side of things. I had never seen a women's game of rugby until the Irish women won that Grand Slam, and it was the first time it was broadcast, and it was the first time I saw it being played, but I actually hadn't played rugby at that stage. And I remember looking at the screen, and it was in Italy, horribly muddy conditions. I think they had hypothermia, some of the girls, after it. It was so cold, and I thought to myself, I'd never play that game. Thankfully, it's got a little bit nicer now, and we play a lot of our games on Astro Pitch, and the facilities have got better and the training has got better. But I actually remember saying to myself, geez, I'd never play rugby. But here I am, and it's worked out very well for me, and it's been an amazing career. And look, I couldn't have asked for, I suppose, a better way to end with an award like this.
Just that 10 years that you were playing, just take out TikTok for a minute, but what else have you noticed as the big changes in terms of women's rugby?
So even from taking a break for 2 years out of the game between my knee injury and having Caelan, the way that it has advanced in professionalism, if it increases in the professionalism every 2 years, at the rate it has improved, between coaching, facilities, getting to train in the high performance centre, having under 20s teams, having the Celtic Cup Challenge, which is happening at the moment, having, I suppose, the provinces as strong as they are, and the way that they're trying to grow the structures of the provinces in the women's game, it's changed dramatically from, I suppose, we used to train below in Fermoy in Cork when I started with Munster, and now we train in the HPC in the same place that the men get to train, and similarly with Ireland, we get to train in the same facilities. So I suppose it's just leaps and bounds further from when I started off playing rugby with coaching and standards, but also you've girls like Raven and Erin up there that have started playing rugby when they were, I don't know, able to pick up a rugby ball, and that's the benefit of it, is that they're starting rugby at such a young age that by the time they come into a senior squad, their skills are phenomenal. Whereas when I started, I'm learning everything at 23, and you can't have the game understanding that girls like them have because they start at such a young age. So the players are better. On top of everything else, the players are also better.
That 2-year break that you took, you had Caelan, and then you had a really bad injury. Was it in the back of your mind that I want to play for Ireland again? How much of a drive was that for you to put on the Irish jersey once more?
Yeah, I came back from Caelan with UL Bows and played with Munster, and then against Leinster I did my ACL, and then I just said, that's it. That's my rugby career over. And I had planned to come back. Like, I was aiming for Six Nations and aiming to get back on in that first season. And then the ACL happened, and I just thought, I'm not going to get back. I'm 32. Everything is against me. All the odds are against me. And then as my ACL rehab was happening, it just seemed a little bit more possible that I could maybe make the Interpro game, or maybe make the first game of Interpros. And then it kept closer. I think I aimed at the first game, actually. And then it was like, I might work the first game. Got near the first game, the fullback that was due to start broke her nose, and I was in. And then on the Tuesday before the game, I tore my hamstring. So then I was like, oh, look, it'll never happen. The next game, I missed with my hamstring, and then finally got back in for the final game. Got about 20 minutes, and then I got the call from Scott, the head coach of Ireland. And before that, myself and Dean had sat down in a cafe, and we were planning annual leave, and using my parental leave and where we're going to go on holidays. And I said, will you just hold off on booking anything? Ireland are playing Australia on the 12th of, I don't know what date it was, in August, the week after the Interpros. I said, just hold off on that. And I suppose when you I didn't really want to say it out loud, but I had an aim of making that international game, even though I never, I didn't really think it was possible, but I had it in my head. So I suppose we held off on booking anything because even if there was a small chance that I could get back and play for Ireland, that was the game that I wanted to aim for. And I suppose sometimes when you have a goal in your head or a plan in your head, even if you don't say it out loud, you kind of aim towards it. And I never, when Scott rang my phone, I couldn't believe that he was ringing me to call me back into Irish camp. And there was no guarantee I was going to play that game against Australia too. And that's what I kept saying was, look, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be in camp. Even if I don't make that Australia squad, I've proved a point that I can be back in with the best and compete with the best after having Kayla on. And that was, I suppose, goal number one for me, to prove to myself and to prove to other women that you can come back and be at that standard to play any sport after having a baby.
Played that game, which was a really special game. You won very convincingly against Australia, and you scored a try. So that was a phenomenal success story for you, Emer, to come back for someone that was going, well, we'll see.
And leave it to the rest of the girls to go through the Six Nations and the World Cup, which is such an exciting year for them.
Before I let you go, what will you miss?
I'll miss the girls. I'll miss the changing rooms and the bus journeys and the dressing room celebration after we beat the Black Ferns was, well, actually, myself and Cleena Maloney were pulled out for drugs testing afterwards. And when we came back in, everyone was just blaring Zombie, and it was just the scenes in the dressing room afterwards were just something that I'll never forget. And it's that stuff that brings you closer. It's the sing-songs in the bus, it's the sing-songs in the changing rooms, the friendships you make over the years. And that is the thing I'll miss the most. It's not the rugby on the field, it's everything else off it.
Yeah, well, we'll certainly miss watching you. Againi Ursula, Bullabus Mór Martian, the
The Her Sport Community Award, powered by Energia, gives us a small insight into the incredible contributions made by people across Ireland. Described as the embodiment of perseverance, leadership and kindness, inspiring everyone around her, the driving force behind the developing cerebral palsy women's football in Ireland. With many of our team here to celebrate tonight, the winner is Heather Jameson.
What does this mean to you?
Thank you very much. This is absolutely incredible. Like everybody else up here this evening, there's a really competitive group of women nominated for these fabulous awards, so it's absolutely an honour to be part of it.
A popular choice. You have a big fan club here with you tonight as well, and you were nominated earlier on as well for the Her Sport Team of the Year. How did you get involved in playing football?
I suppose ever since I could walk, I had a football at my feet, and that's thanks to Mum and Dad the whole way. We've always been a very sporty family, but football was the one of choice. Mum loves her horses and tried very hard to keep us involved in that, but I think Dad won out with the football. And I suppose I just played grassroots football at my local club, Ashbourne United, and was fortunate enough then, through a career in athletics, got involved in Paralympics, and I always knew I wanted to create that environment of young girls with cerebral palsy playing football. And I suppose that kind of drive and my role with the FAI gave me the opportunity to do so. And I got to meet some incredible people, put together a wonderful team, and got ourselves nominated for Team of the Award as well.
Talk to me about the cerebral palsy and the team that you've put together. Was it your idea that came up with it, or how? Talk us a bit how you came about getting it together.
Yeah, so we have the Cerebral Palsy Football Academy in Dublin, which caters for both boys and girls with cerebral palsy to play football specifically with other people affected in the same way. But for a long time, it was only myself and Ella Sherlock were the only two girls involved. And I just knew that couldn't stay the same way it was. And as I said, fortunate enough in my role with the FAI, I got the opportunity to get a bit of funding together to develop a women's cerebral palsy programme. We didn't realise at the beginning how far we could potentially get with it. It kind of just set out as a dream and a hope. and we've over 50 girls now in our grassroots programme. Went to our first World Cup this year, or 2024, and came third, bronze medalist. So a really, really big way.
What was that experience at a World Cup like?
I think that was just a dream come true. As a young footballer, watching any team play, you just want to be involved, you want to be a part of it. I suppose growing up, looking at your country play in different international competitions, the Irish women's team met their first World Cup in 2023. I think that was a massive driving force for us as well. We knew we wanted to be a part of the movement and a part of what's happening with women's sport in the country. But getting to put on the green jersey and step out on the pitches is something that you dream of since you're 5 years old.
And what have you seen kind of the challenges and the visibility of cerebral palsy in teams, and how is that changing? Do you see that that's changing?
Definitely. I feel like every time I meet somebody and we didn't know you existed, and they realise then all the good work that's going on and the amount of people involved. I think the biggest kind of misconception is most young girls think, oh, well, I can't play football, or so that's not for me. And we're trying to change that narrative to say, like, you know, football isn't the important part. The important part is that you have cerebral palsy and that you're interested to get to know other young girls who would have gone through the same things in life, all the physio appointments, countless doctor appointments, and I suppose the challenges in just walking itself. So being able to manage that and meet other people who have gone through the same walk of life, it's incredible for the mums and dads as well, for them to see that it's not just their daughter or their son going through this experience. There's a massive community and network amongst everybody, and just trying to encourage more people to realise that even if it's not football, as hard as I'll try, there are many other sports that young women with CP can get involved in.
I love the way you say that, even if it's not football. Plans, what's the hopes now for the next while with the FAI and this programme?
I think the girls are just going from strength to strength, and every time I look at them, they're getting a little bit taller, so I have to learn how to keep growing a little bit myself. So, you know, we're just trying to expand the numbers, expand the programme, get as many girls involved, whether they're 6, 7 years of age or at the older end of the scale, like myself. I refer to those girls up there as my children because I feel like I am the mammy. The World Cup group had an average age of 17, so an absolutely incredible bunch of young girls who went across there. And the dream this year, is hopefully European Championships in August, and retain our title as the #1 team in Europe.
Well, we wish you the very best. No doubt you can do it. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause one more time, please, for Heather Denison.
So we've just celebrated some of the incredible stars of 2024, and now it's time to take a look back. We reflect on those that have had stellar athletic careers and contributions to sport, those that have broken barriers for generations behind them, that have been role models for the sports stars of today, the people that they dream to be. I'd like to invite Robert Ryan, CEO of Lidl, and a proud dad of 3 girls to present the award of the Her Sport Hall of Fame sponsored by Lidl. Olivia O'Toole, Katrina McKiernan and Fiona Coughlin will be joined by Cork camogie and footballing legend Rena Buckley in the Her Sport Hall of Fame sponsored by Lidl.
Hey Rena, Gemma here. Just a quick message just to say congratulations on the Her Sport Hall of Fame award. It's an amazing award to get after an amazing career, so a very well deserved accolade. Enjoy the evening and congratulations again.
Rina Cara Cogord is that as Upton Gradam Hall of Fame by Her Sport. It's an amazing achievement. Well deserved. We're all very proud of you.
Huge congratulations, Rena. A very fitting tribute for someone as accomplished as you are. You are one of the most loyal, honest, kind and caring people I know, and you're good all crack as well. So huge congrats on your wonderful accolade, Rena, and enjoy the celebration.
Cogardas Moore,
Míle buchas Grania.
Hall of Fame, Milat and Rudson, no Cadeo Orientin or Hula Grow and Gradam Shock on a Winshirt.
Yeah, well, it's more an uair of I glach an gradam so cap me riv an grada nach riv me is to galorach ní olam griv an cartagum so better gulum sa category cart better but lawn sauce that she go huntach ve an so agus fe a mask na dini so agus a geist le gachtin ta ig immert fe láhar agus just on atmosphere agus gachrod sa seomra tá sé go huntach ar fad.
It has been an absolute phenomenal career, Rena. 18 inter-county All-Ireland titles. Have you had time to think, to reflect on what you have achieved?
Yeah, I suppose, I finished up, so I played, my last football game with Cork would have been in 2016, and my last camogie game with Cork was in 2017. So it is a while ago now. And there's been a few instances where I've been forced to kind of sit back and reflect. So, for example, TG Carr did a Laker Gale on me, and that was certainly an experience that I had to kind of sit down and think back through the years, and things like that would make you reflect. But the reality is life goes on, and it's like there's the mundane ins and outs and the things you'd be looking forward to. So I don't sit back and think too much about things. You just live in the moment and keep going and kind of look to the next challenge and, just try and enjoy life as best you can. But I'm certainly aware that, look, I was very lucky. I was born kind of at the right time in a county that was really stuck in GA, the sport that I was playing in. The place that I was born in Cork, there was teams for girls to play in. I was born in the 80s, and there was teams for girls to play in and good teams for girls to play in. I was really supported by my schools, and obviously the biggest support from home. And they didn't see women's sport any different to men's sport. So all those factors played into it, and I thoroughly enjoyed playing at home with my club. My sister played with our club, and she got as much out of sport nearly as myself, I'd say. And I got the chance to play with Cork, and we were really successful, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I suppose looking back now, I don't, lie in bed and cuddle the medals I have or anything like that. But I look back and I think of the friends I have, the experience I've had, the lessons I've learned and the crack we've had, and it's just enhanced my life. And come here, I've had bad games, we've lost games, but certainly I can look back with a big smile on my face, and it's been just a pleasure, and it certainly was a dream to play with Cork, and it was a brilliant period of my life.
I should also add that she is the only person to have ever captained her native county to All-Ireland glory in both camogie and football, so I think that deserves a massive round of applause as well. You had plenty of time to reflect on games, and I also sometimes feel it's really hard to ask somebody, well, what particular game stands out when you've won 18 All-Irelands, or what particular All-Ireland stands out. But when you did that programme with Laker Gale, what did stand out for you, apart from the memories, but actually winning? What stood out?
So actually, I'll tell you, the Laker Gale experience, there was one thing that really stood out about the Laker Gale experience, and it was so left field. But I actually did a little bit of athletics when I was young, right? And I won an under-13 All-Ireland, and they mentioned that in the Laker Gale. And so there was a picture of me on the podium. So I was in the centre, and then on the second place, so to my right, I think, there was a girl from Selbridge. She got second, and so I'm great friends from college with a girl who played with Selbridge. She was a brilliant camogie player, Susie O'Carroll, and Susie O'Carroll was great friends with that girl who came second, but she had sadly passed away.
Oh gosh!
And do you know what? That Laker Gale. So I could have looked back and said, geez, that was great. The GA was brilliant, the Gaelic games, brilliant. But actually, lads, life can be so difficult. And I suppose when I think of that Laker Gale, I actually always think of that girl. I never, like, I probably shook hands with her after the race and that was it. But how life, I've been so lucky. She didn't have that same luck, and that's something that I'm really grateful for. And, sport is brilliant. Life can, deal you a certain set of cards, and, you just have to play what you get. And, I'm so grateful. But I'll go back to your original question. Matches, All-Ireland finals, there's two that probably stick out. From a football point of view, in 2014 we played Dublin, and I'm sure anyone who's listened to anyone who played with Cork on the team we played with, like Dublin should have, without a doubt, they should have beaten us that day. It was their big chance. Like they probably were the better team on the day, and I think they were 11 points up after 10 minutes in the second half, and like we managed to claw ourselves back and win. And that match was phenomenal in that I remember at half-time, the most of us thought the game was gone, to be honest, but we just got a bit of momentum behind us and we stuck at it. And the match itself, I was playing midfield, but towards the end of the game I was put into full back, and the last 10 minutes of the game was mainly fear for myself from a personal point of view. But the elation after was phenomenal. From a camogie point of view, my last game with Cork was in 2017, and probably in my heart and soul I knew before that game I probably wouldn't be back after that. So it was a game that I probably knew it was my last kind of day in a Cork jersey, and I suppose I thoroughly enjoyed it. We came out on top by I think it was a point in the end. We played against Kilkenny, who were it was nip and tuck between the two of us at the time, and yeah, those two games are two standout games for sure.
I actually, on a side note, I remember I was covering that game for TG Cahir in the women's football. And I remember on the sideline just waiting to go speak, oh my God, Dublin have finally done it, they've finally beaten Cork, because you were going for your fourth All-Ireland. And just in a matter of the last few seconds it changed. But Breach Corkery, another phenomenal athlete who has the record with you of 18 titles, she said at halftime the talk is like, we have to go out and not embarrass ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah. And I remember like Eamon Ryan, who sadly isn't with us anymore, but like he was our manager, and he was like part of the family. He was someone we just looked up to. And I remember thinking things were going so bad before halftime. I remember thinking, Eamon will say something now that'll really rally the troops. And we went into the dressing room, and I know I was looking up saying, what'll Eamon say now? And he came and he was like, well lads, that was terrible anyway. And if you don't change it, you'll lose. So he wasn't wrong.
But you did change it. Who would have been your biggest influence, or you would have looked up to the most as a role model in all aspects growing up?
So my first role model had to have been my older brother. So I didn't come from a big sporting household. We don't have massive tradition in our house of GA or sport or anything like that. It was my brother, and I thought he was unbelievable. He was a bit older than me, so he was unbelievable in comparison to me, but he did bring sport to the house, and he brought, he was one of the reasons that we went outside every day playing. So he was definitely my number one role model. I suppose my second biggest role model, and she still is, would be Sonia O'Sullivan. So I was into athletics as a child, and Sonia was a world-class athlete, and she was from Cork. I mean, it was phenomenal stuff. I remember I actually have this vivid memory of her being on the Late Late Show, and I had come home from athletics training, and they showed a picture of her foot on the TV, and I remember taking off my shoe to see was my foot anything like Sonia O'Sullivan's foot. So she was definitely a role model.
And was it?
I thought it was very like it at the time anyway. But on a serious note, I suppose I was very lucky in that Irene O'Keefe was a Cork camogie player from my club. No, we didn't know her. She wasn't she wasn't a next door neighbour or anything like that. But my mother taught her in school. So because of that, I'm not sure how, my mother must have had a bit of discipline in school, because Irene seemed to take a big interest in us. So I remember Irene. I remember Cork won the won the All-Ireland in 99, and the team came back to the club, during the year with the cup, and Irene brought me around and introduced me to all the team, and I got their autographs. So that set me on the road, and I remember after that going to the Camogie All-Irelands on the club bus, and it was like, that was a huge thing because I knew someone who was a Cork Camogie player. I knew where I wanted to go, and I had a tangible person that had achieved that. So she was certainly a role model. And then I suppose from a football perspective, I was playing with Donaghmore. So Donaghmore are a successful club as well, and there was 2 players, Juliet Murphy and Honora Kelleher, were Cork players. So again, from a football perspective, I knew people who were playing with Cork, and I knew that's where I wanted to go. So knowing those people definitely was a huge help for me.
That visibility that we all talk about, you had that growing up. You had fabulous female role models.
It was something I wasn't aware of at the time, but I suppose now, looking back, I'm very aware that was certainly, that was a big, big help. And, we all know in terms of visibility, the more female, and her sport is obviously, that's part of what they're trying to do here. And I think it's becoming more and more successful in Irish culture, but it certainly had a huge effect on me growing up, and I really hope that it's encouraging all young women to keep participating in sport, and shows them where they can go and the impact it can have on their life.
Having won 18 All-Ireland titles, bear this in mind, you told a story about being invited to a particular GAA club to present medals to underage boys, and while you were there, you were unasked to do that job. Can you tell us that story? Because I know it shocked everybody in the room that day.
Yeah, that's right. So it was, I suppose we had won the Camogie All-Ireland in 2017. So I suppose I had received Camogie Player of the Year. So that winter I was asked to a club to present medals to both the girls' team and a boys' team. Sorry, to the girls' team. And there was a male representative asked to present medals to the boys' team. But the male representative who was asked to present to the boys' team wasn't able to come for some reason at short notice. So the club kind of panicked, and they just asked one of the local lads to present the medals. And I suppose I was thinking at the time, cheekers, I wonder would there have been anyone else they could have asked, And I suppose on a serious note, I suppose at the time I was, I don't want to go on about it, but I was the player of the year. Mm-hmm. I mean, you couldn't have kind of got a female, with more qualified for the role. But at the time, the people, I suppose, with the job of deciding who would give, these were like an underage team, their medals, they decided that obviously any female wasn't good enough, so just any male would nearly do. And I found that shocking at the time. That was in 2017. So I told the story because I hope it resonated with people that, people are role models. And it shouldn't be, everyone's a role model. You're a role model. You don't have to be performing sports at a high level to be a role model. You're a role model to, at work, to young people, whether you're a parent or not. It might be to nieces or nephews, might be to neighbours or friends. And if you're a parent, you're certainly a role model there. And if you're going to be a role model to all genders. So I was very taken aback that someone felt that you had to be of a specific gender to be a correct role model. So I really hope that going forward that people recognise role models shouldn't need to be of a certain gender. If you're a good role model, you're a good role model.
That's not that long ago. It's 7 years, going on 8 years, probably the end of this year. But in terms of what you have seen since then, Rena, what change have you seen happening?
Yeah, there's certainly been a change, and there was a huge change from when I started playing to when I finished playing. And social media has really driven that change. So I think a change that has really occurred since I stopped playing is, I think the social media movement had probably started by the time I finished playing, but I probably think the mainstream media has moved definitely more since I finished playing. That's definitely one thing that's changed. A second thing that's changed is the participation has changed hugely, I think. In that, I think nowadays, if you're interested in sport, whether you're male or female, you will just play sport. Whereas before, it was the males played and the females kind of didn't, or the minority did maybe. Whereas now it seems to be, if you like sport, regardless of your gender, you play. In terms of attendances, that's gone through the roof. No, maybe it's not consistent throughout the year in the female sport, so that's probably the change that needs to occur. And I suppose another change that has occurred is there is more financial backing, but that definitely needs to occur more. There needs to be a bit more parity on that. And I suppose from a Gaelic Games perspective, I'd love to see that integration would happen. I think the deadline is 2027, and I'd love to see that happen. I don't want to see ladies football in Camogie, their associations that I've been part of for a long number of years, I don't want to see them swallowed up or anything like that. I'd love to see a new Gaelic Games organisation where all three come together to promote Gaelic Games. I'd love to see that happen I'd love to see it happen in 2027. Whether it will happen or not, we'll see. But that would be glorious in my eyes anyway.
Before I let you go, it has been a phenomenal career. If you had to go back to that 11-year-old girl, writing down her dreams, writing down her aspirations, and of those young girls in this room today, what would you say to them?
What would I say to them? I suppose I've been really lucky. I've had a great time playing sport, I suppose I've been lucky that I've won, lots of medals and stuff like that with Cork. But I suppose the main thing is that, so I have a twin sister. That sister I spoke of, she's actually my twin sister. So she's always at a par. We're doing all the same kind of things in our lives. So I suppose you don't have to achieve at the elite level to get a lot out of sport. What's important is that you stick at it, that you play it, and that you enjoy it. You do all the hard work, you learn all the lessons, but you enjoy it. And, things go your way at times. Other times they don't go your way. But that's life. Just stick at it. Do your very best. Enjoy it. Your participation in sport may not, there's only a certain window that you're going to be playing at a high level anyway. I suppose we have to set ourselves up to play for over our whole lifetime. So it is the enjoyment piece. And the health piece will be a big part of it as well. If we can set ourselves up to do that, then I think our lives will be better for it. And the more people playing sport, the better. And anyone who's playing sport, we should celebrate that and celebrate them. And I think we'll have a better culture and a better society for that.
Next
we will reveal the nominees for Her Sport Athlete of the Year, sponsored by Gym Plus. I'd like to invite Sandra from Gym Plus up to present the award. There will be names that you know and names that you might not. These are the best of the best that Ireland has produced in 2024, and if there are athletes that you don't recognise, I want you to commit to learning their stories. We have the only Irish woman to compete at 5 Olympic Games, the first Irish woman to win back-to-back Olympic golds, brilliant bronze at Paris, European medals and stalwarts of the LGFA and Camogie. Here are your nominees.
of the Her Sport Athlete of the Year, sponsored by Gym Plus, is Kelly Harrington. Unfortunately, Kelly cannot be with us here this evening, but she sent us this message.
Hey everybody, Kelly Harrington here. I'm sorry that I can't be with you tonight, but I have previous commitments. We wouldn't be having these awards tonight if it wasn't for Her Sports shining a light on women's sports across Ireland. Her Sports have given women and women's sports the platform to be able to show Ireland and the world what us Irish women can do. So thank you to Her Sports and their partners. Thank you to all those people who have taken their time to vote for me as Her Sports Sportswoman of the Year 2024. I really do appreciate it. That's from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody. Good night.
To accept the award on her behalf, please give a warm welcome to the head coach of Irish boxing, Zor Antia. Zor, we could saw from Kelly what this means to her. How special are awards like this to Kelly?
It's fantastic. It's very good. She's very happy, and I am very happy too when she's very happy. Yeah. This is something very different for human's life, you know. And this is big inspiration as well for generations and for the future of sport.
When you first met Kelly, what were your first impressions of her?
It's about 10 years time. Since I saw Kelly many competitions as well, before she became team member, I saw the talent, something very special she always had. I think 2015 she became Irish champion, different weight categories, and then 2015 we went in the Kazakhstan for the World Championships, and then Kelly became a silver medalist. And there was very close to gold, but that was her milestone that time. And after that, she won everything. Then 2016, world champion, European champion, and then again European gold. And then everybody knows 2 Olympic gold medals. It's absolutely phenomenal. Very good. What can I say? Yeah.
You noticed her talent, but what is it about her that is so special as a boxer? What are the talents that she has for you that makes her so coachable and has achieved so much?
There are many things. There are physical possibilities. She's absolutely universal boxer. And she has some character as well, which is, you know, she loves clarity, what she does. And she has skills, very good skills. And then when you feed these skills by good experience, that's what happens then. And and as well, this relationship, you know, which creates good trust between each other, coaching group, support staff, everything. Kelly very special about, pays big attention about this everything, and that this everything creates that great future of the sportsman.
And winning back-to-back gold medals at the Olympics, it's such a huge achievement, and we witnessed the joy and how much it meant to all of us here at home watching that. For you being involved in coaching that, what did it mean to you and the team?
Look, that's what I said. It's very special, means only high intelligence people can achieve back-to-back 2 gold medals. In boxing, there's only 3 persons in the world. 2 in Europe and 1 from America, girl. Again, this is can't. You can see how I dance, maybe with Kelly there. But I can't display. This is a fantastic achievement. When you plan everything with good planning and the challenge you have joyful challenge and hard work, but joyful again. Best environment, and everybody saw how happened this everything. I don't know. I trust her ability always, and she was trust as well to us, our team, coaching team. Her club coach, very good person as well, and happened that what should happen, and she is 2 times Olympic champion. Fantastic achievements.
Will you miss her singing?
Yeah, we will sing again. And we will dance again, I think. And I want to say a few words as well. This process, 10 years together, the victory or all challenge we have, this is a big process. This is very interesting process. To win 2 times Olympic gold medal, it takes really, really good work and confidence and relentlessness and everything, absolutely. But I want to say about Kelly that she is a fantastic person, very kind person, she loves people. She loves helping people, okay? She never stays without, respect. It's fantastic, phenomenal person, And if she trusts you, he will die for you as well. That's what I want to say about Kelly.
A huge tribute, a fitting tribute for Kelly. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Zora.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done, Zora.
2024 marked an important year for her sport as we made new connections and partnerships. One of the highlights was being accepted onto a global programme run by Adidas, the Adidas Breaking Barriers programme. We met organisations from across the world who in their own way contribute to breaking barriers for girls and women in sport. In a full circle moment, Adidas are proudly sponsoring the 2024 panel discussion with the theme of, you guessed it, breaking barriers. Joining us on tonight's panel is Bevan Parsons, the youngest Irish rugby player to make their international debut and Adidas ambassador, Conor Myler, PhD student studying gender equality in sport and leadership, and Tyrone footballer, Lynn Cantwell, the most capped Irish women's rugby player and recently appointed Head of Women's Strategy at the IRFU. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
It gets very quiet when you're making your way from the back of the room up here. Great to see you all. Thanks for joining us. Lynn, Niamh just mentioned there your new job title. So how is the new role going and why did you decide to do it?
I purposely let Bevan go up before me so that I couldn't sit so close to you. that just backfired. So yeah, I just took on. I'm 3 weeks into the job with the RFU, and why did I take it on? Look, I suppose people are aware of the journey of women's sport over the last decades and decades, but in my lifetime, probably 3 decades, and the story of how rugby has kind of fit into that. And there's lots of kind of complex things that contribute to why women's sport is where it is, and lots of very simple things, just like opportunity and so on. But one of the things that's really important is leadership at a board level, and obviously at a kind of CEO level and an executive level. And if a sport is ambitious to be able to look into the future and see what's possible and really want to go at it, it's very possible. But without that leadership, it's pushing closed doors or pushing an elephant up a hill. And not that that fight isn't still worth it, but who takes on that fight is, determines whether or not you do it. So I suppose why I took it on is I think in the RFU at the moment there is ambition at a leadership level to make massive inroads, and I'm willing to go on that journey with them. And it's obviously been helped so much by what the girls are doing in the last couple of years, and it's great to see that. And I want the national teams are really important at the top, but the whole system build is probably something I'm really passionate about. And we know what we're building in women's sport has to be sustainable, and we're in the era where we need to build that system. So that's why I took it on.
There's A lot of experience there, and we all learn. That's our journey that we're on, because you were in South Africa before that, involved with women's rugby there too. What did you learn from that experience that you can bring with you here to your job now in Irish rugby?
I've said this before, and I spoke to Conor about it during the week. It's a very different country. There's 60 million people, and the landscape and the stage at which I went into South Africa was very different to what Ireland's at. So some things you just can't compare, but some things you can. I think South Africa are 30 years down their road of transformation from a post-apartheid era, and when they look at inequality, they really understand the need to provide opportunity in order for everybody to maximise their capability. So when you talk about gender transformation, it's the exact same principle. It's not that women are not capable of achieving what boys and men can do. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity. So I think that principle of opportunity is something that we can apply here. I know, and I'm sure there's lots of people in this room and on this couch that we all know we're capable of. And you know what we're seeing now, and all these amazing women on the screen, is women actualizing what they're capable of, and it's only because they've been given opportunities, you know, and. So I think that's kind of the main principle that I'll bring across with me. As I said, lots of things we can't compare, and probably useful not to go into now.
Vivian, Linda's mentioned there about the terrific year for Irish rugby last year. I mean, beating the Black Ferns, Australia in the 15s, third in the Six Nations, a World Cup to look forward to this year, and then in the sevens, qualifying, very, very first Olympics. What was that feeling like when you realised you qualified for that?
Qualifying for the Olympics was just pure relief. People think it's pure joy, but I think we all just took one massive sigh of relief when we did it. It's like this monkey on our back, and there were so many people that went through the program, and so many, like Emer said earlier, being part of the program, and there's so many things that had to align for us to actually qualify, and to be part of the lucky 12 that were there on the day was just such a privilege. But we have so much knowledge that we know that so many people contributed to that. So we're just the privileged ones that got to be there on the day and get it over the line.
And being part of the Olympics, like what was that like? What was that whole experience like?
Yeah, it was hands down the best experience of my life. We did so much work on visualization and preparing and seeing the map layout and schedules, just so you wouldn't be awestruck when you got into the village. But all of that went out the window. As soon as I got there, I was just like amazed by everything, and seeing like these world-class athletes and being in the same building as Kelly Harrington and seeing what makes people tick. It was just amazing. And me and Erin, we were roommates, and she's there, so I'm looking at her. And we just looked and explored every inch of the village. And just when I thought my Olympics experience couldn't get any better, you got to run out in front of a packed out Stade de France with, you know, Irish flags in every corner, and you could literally hear the voices of your friends and family that had travelled over, and it felt like you were playing in front of a home crowd at an Olympics. So it was just the best experience of my life. I ended up breaking my leg, but I'd do it all over again anyway.
Well, we're glad it was that good, so that's good to hear. Conor, you have been involved with Tyrone football for many years, injured at the moment, so not playing. That's why you're here, though maybe not up in Oma tonight playing Derry. But who were your role models when you were growing up, and was playing for Tyrone something that you always wanted to do?
Yeah, probably from a young age. My dad was probably the first person for a lot of young men. Looked up to my father as someone who played for Tyrone, so that was always the goal. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to do that in 2015, made my senior debut. Right through to now at the minute, but injured, so the goal is still to get back. But yeah, but it's cool listening to even the likes of Rena there. Like even just watching women's sport growing up, people have mentioned Sonia and the likes as well. So would have always probably been a sports fan, without necessarily gendering it, being able to appreciate someone as being a good athlete, regardless of gender. So even the last couple of years watching the likes of Bavine playing and being able to say, look at her the same way as a Keelan Doris or Peter Romani, as they're a talented athlete rather than gendering it. And that's probably the hope, even with the research that I'm doing, that young boys can look up to women in sport, even the likes of Bavine and Erin here, as role models, not necessarily just as female role models. So,
had you always that awareness about gender, or what experiences lent itself to you that you stopped looking at just male sport and female sport?
No, it's a good question. Probably grown up in a house where I had 2 younger sisters who would have played a bit of club football. I did a lot of athletics growing up, so there wasn't much of a gender divide there. Going to schools cross country and athletics, and even competing at a regional, national level, it's a fairly gender equal sport, so that was a big part of it. Going to an all boys school then, didn't really see or know much different. And again, as a player then, as you get a wee bit older, you become selfish and you're quite tunnel visioned in your own sport, so I probably didn't see some of the inequality that went on within my own county. Fast forward to year 27, I was actually very conscious. We won an All Ireland in 2021, and I didn't want my legacy to just be having a good year personally, and the team had success, but I was very conscious that's not something I wanted to be solely known for, was my Tyrone career. So I was part of a GPA motion then put forward for integration off the back of start my PhD, which was an interesting process that I wouldn't have been gifted academically. I had to work very hard for it. Was keen to do a PhD, as I say, because I wanted to push on professionally. Managed to stumble across, if you had tortured enough people to find out about the process, and was put in touch with Dr. Aoife Lane, who's become more than just a mentor. She's someone I really admire. Along with Aoife and Dr. Katie Liston, they've guided me to where I'm now. But the process started with just looking at gender equality in sport. And at the time, with the motion going forward for integration, it was like, well, there's no research done on this. There's very little research across the world in terms of how a successful merger, taking a men's association and a women's and bringing them together. Most people were just winging it. And from talking to some really intelligent people across the world who were part of those mergers, it was all a wee bit ad hoc. And my thinking was, well, can we put a bit of structure to this? Can we follow some sort of strategy plan to see how we could have a successful integration in Gaelic Games? So there was a steering committee set up then with the 3 presidents, 3 CEOs, and former President Mary McAleese, which is now in place nearly 2 years. And as Rena mentioned earlier, with this plan of 2027. But to be honest, things are very slow to move. I recently last year published a policy brief on integration in Gaelic Games of what it could look like, backed by some research, and then more recently in the last couple of weeks, some research on mergers and integrations in sporting organisations across UK, Australia, New Zealand, to try and give a bit of credibility to the research and what we can do in Gaelic Games. So yeah, that's where we're at the minute. I have high hopes like Rena, but the reality is things have been slow to move.
When you started playing international rugby, you came from an athletics background at Lynn, but when you look back and when you were very much involved in it, what were the barriers that you had to playing sport as a woman?
Rugby wise. Yeah, look, I was the same as Connor and Erin actually as well. I started as an athlete as well, so my experience was an individual sports person, and just played sport, just to get better as a sports person, or actually it was Rena who mentioned it as well. And I didn't take up rugby until I was 19 when I went to UL, and Connor will support this as well. I think we know that gender disparities show up in team sports more so than individual sports, for the reason I think individual sports is just the physical capacity of the athlete, and it's way more evolved, and we the world achieved such success this year or last year with the Olympics with 50-50 representation. So I think when I started playing rugby, look, I was a nerdy scientist that was down in UL, being a sports scientist. I took up rugby. I was fast, and I started playing down in Munster in UL, whereby there wasn't really barriers to girls playing sport because it was just a rugby mad province. But we kind of blissfully played for 6 or 7 years, probably until I got to the age or to more of a mature point in my life where I could look back and say, like, this is not right. When I went into the sport, I looked from an athletics point of view. You look at the systems and structures that are in place in rugby, and they were relatively amateur. But is that just amateur as in the age of the sport, or is that just really underdeveloped because it's been neglected and just largely not prioritized? And look, there's an element of both, because globally men's rugby, if we just talk about rugby, is 120 years old, and women's rugby is 45, 50 years old, in Ireland, for example. So there's an element of age there, but to the point before I mentioned about opportunity, so much of it's governed by the opportunities that have been put in. So look, the barriers that were there at the time were lack of facilities, lack of funding, lack of daily training environment, lack of insight around female athletes, like zero sports science and medicine, competition structure, pathway. And when we talk about pathway, we take for granted that a boy might play a sport at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and there is a team for him to go to up and along. Whereas for a girl, she might start at 7, a league might reappear at 9, maybe then 14, and before you know it, how many opportunities are there for her to have dropped out, gone to another sport, or just not play sport at all. And I think that's what we're all feeling very passionate about. It's not about sport, it's about young women being healthy and having a good relationship with exercise for them to be physically healthy, but then kind of emotionally and mentally healthy. So they were the things that we experienced. I want to just clarify, we were blissfully unaware, we were in college having the time of our lives, but I think it's not until you grow up and you see more of the world and the reality of it, then you step back and say, whoa, we've just kind of not wasted 6, 7 years of our lives, but we could be so much further on if we just had leadership and the right type of system in place in order to support our growth, which our male kind of counterparts do.
But how frustrating was that, though, at the time? Because you were really successful, yet that success wasn't being backed by other people, possibly the RFU at the time as well, maybe weren't as good as they are now towards women's rugby. So how frustrating was that for you to notice this as you go on in your career, realising we're not getting the fairness here?
Yeah, look, it is frustrating. And again, as a 43-year-old woman, I look back and just go, and that's the motivation to ensure that that's not what the future looks like. But one thing I do maintain, and this is my nerdy scientist coming out in me and the kind of technical rugby nut that I am, you have to know your game. So one of the opportunities we did have is that we had an incredible technical director at the time in the RFU and a personal mentor to me for a long, long time, who taught us how to play rugby really, really well. And what we achieved in 2013 and 2014 was genuinely just that we were playing the sport, literally the sport, at an exceptionally high kind of mastery level at a time when the world really weren't really playing that. But that just speaks to, if you give opportunity, then that's what you can achieve. So I think I still maintain that, is that there's, this is quite a complex thing. We're talking about equity and, removing the barriers so that females and girls can flow through it. But, at a fundamental level, because we're talking about sport, you have to be good at your game. And I think that's why in this era, daily training environments and coaching is really, really key, so that girls have the opportunity to progress, but they're good at their sport, so that we can progress at an international level, but at a young girl's level. If I'm a, you and Rena will attest to this, if I'm a 6-year-old girl And if I take up a camogie step when I'm 9, you know, I've probably lost it already, you know, whereas if I'm a 6-year-old girl, if I pick up a camogie stick, or I'm taught how to play the game, I'm going to have a great relationship with that stick, and I'm going to play that game for the rest of my life. And you know, it doesn't matter if you play county football, but you know, you're going to have, you know, just a good kind of quality of life through sport. So anyway, so look, I've said a few things there. Anyway, you can tell my thoughts on it. But yeah, that was kind of my experience of the Blockers and Marys at the time.
Bevan, for you, like it was 19. I know Emer spoke earlier. She was older as well when she started playing rugby. But you started, I think it was under 9s. Was it that you started playing with Ballinasloe? Was it?
I started playing for the mixed team in Ballinasloe, and the requirement at the time was 1 girl. That's all you needed to have a mixed team. So the boys in my class were like, please, we really think we can, we mightn't win in the boys league, but we'll definitely win if we play in this mixed league. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I played for that 1 season and I really, really loved it. But then after that, there was no more, you know, teams for me to play on. So I just went back to Gaelic football. And then I think it was maybe under 14s or under 13s where there was a team set up, a solely girls team in Ballinasloe, and we had like 50, 60 girls coming to training twice a week, and it just took off in such a big way, and the fruits that were like the seeds that were sown then, like we can see it now. There's 3 girls on the team from that Ballinasloe team, the Irish team now, that was on that Ballinasloe team. So it just took off massively, and I loved it, and I just never went back. Yeah.
And what was it about rugby that you particularly loved?
I don't fully know. I think I love that there's just such an array of personalities, shapes, sizes, and like it wasn't like your GA team where everyone sort of looks the same and acts the same. Like I felt like rugby was a sport for everyone, and I was just really drawn to that, and it was so enjoyable, and we had so many numbers at training, and we did so well in those early days, and that enjoyment like really fuels you and springboards you forward. I think like they're the memories that you look back on and you cherish, no matter where you play, what continent I play in now. I know that some of my favourite memories are just in some muddy pitch in Ballinasloe.
Conor, in terms of, we're speaking about your research and in terms of that gender equality, so there's a lot talk now about we need to have more allyship with men. In your research and what you've seen and men that you know, why do you feel maybe for some men it's difficult for them to publicly support female athletes?
Yeah, good question. Even before I go into the support, if you look at the research, men still hold a lot of the leadership positions, especially decision-making positions as we move up through the ranks. And although we're progressive in the sense that we have a lot of quotas at the moment, I think actually 2024 is the first time the GA, IRFU and FA had actually met the gender quota of 40%. The problem with some of the quotas is that we want people in decision-making positions who can implement change rather than having, a token woman on the board who potentially doesn't have any say, because to implement change, which there's the power in having Lynn in her role is in a leadership position, like she can implement change, and then it's a case of having it multi-cyclical where it doesn't take someone strong like Lynn to come in and make change, and then all of a sudden the good work's undone. So there's a piece in educating men who are in positions already about the need for gender equality on our boards. The big thing for me is if we can educate a younger generation so that the next generation, like if we grow up in a generation now where, and this is the vision I have for Gaelic Games, if we were to have an integrated association, like you have a young boy and a young girl go down to the local club, like they know no different. If you're a young girl growing up in England, you can play professional soccer. That's a reality, that's something you can do. If we can educate young boys now that when they get into leadership positions, they know no different. And Lynn opened my eyes in a conversation about even Scandinavian culture where it's built on a philosophy where equality is something is a core value that they have, and they laugh at the thought of having gender equality because they've been doing it for 70, 80 years. So that becomes the culture. So there is a case of having systems, policies and strategies in place where we have to give women opportunities to a point where that just becomes the cultural norm, where young boys go and watch female sports and know it no different, and young girls will go and support the men and know it no different. the male allyship thing, yeah, and I've done a bit of traveling, and I try to talk to people who are a lot more educated and smarter than me in this space, and try to get an understanding for different countries and cultures and all the rest. But in Irish society, and I'm generalising, but I feel like, you know, we're quite traditional and parochial, especially in Gaelic games, which is one of our greatest strengths. You play for your club and your county, but it can also hold us back then in terms of forward thinking and vision. Within the men's game in particular, it's still quite a case, in my eyes, you know, don't say too much and don't question things. And I probably got some flack in the past for questioning things
What
at the
type of
governance.
flack have you got?
Well, even at a governance and national level, like, you might get flack of just, here, you know, no media, like, don't be saying anything or don't be doing anything, or just watch what you're saying in the media. You know, we don't want to challenge or upset anybody. But as a male player as well, the real gripe I have is, I'm conscious there's young people in the room, but I will get abuse, verbal abuse, for being an advocate or an ally for gender equality, like very verbally on a pitch. And I'm not naive to the fact that there's going to be verbals and a bit of stick here and there in a game. If you miss a shot or you get turned over, whatever. But my gripe is that's when you've got 7 or 8 players in a team who are coming up and saying similar things to you, and they're going to question your motives or they're questioning your sexuality over research you're doing, which again should be benefiting everybody. My thing with integration and looking at a Gaelic Games Association is we can all grow together. This doesn't have to be a case that if we integrate, it's men's loss is women's gain. And yes, there's a huge disparity in terms of finance and facilities, but we can all grow together. We can have an integrated association where everybody benefits, and that's the vision that I have. And to do that, you need men on board. Some men will give you the pat on the back behind closed doors to say, you're doing good work, keep it up. And I'm thinking, yeah, but there's no point coming to me, telling me stories about issues you've heard, issues you've seen, things you've let slip, and know that you're not doing anything about it because you're too scared to challenge authorities or your teammates or whoever the powers to be. And as I say, when you've got opposition players then coming and targeting you and saying certain things, and I nearly got a feel it's like, has this been discussed or something, because why are you all saying the same thing here? And then we'll stand for banners united for equality, or the opposite. Some counties won't do it because they feel it's a distraction. I'm like, how unsure of you are you in yourself that standing for a banner united for equality, saying that we support integration and we support the women's game, that you're not even comfortable doing that? And again, probably for me then, even the first time that happened and talking to Aoife and Katie about it, it was like, am I doing the right thing here? Like, because you start to question yourself. And suppose only on my own journey of self-awareness and self-excavation, you dive a bit deeper. It's like, no, I want to stand for something bigger than just me. Now, I mightn't necessarily directly benefit from an integration. You know, there will be a huge benefit for the women in the sense that technically the GA own all the pitches. You know, in terms of funding, the disparity is 12 times, you know, what the GA is making compared to LGFA and Camogie. And you've nearly hit a glass ceiling in some sense within LGFA and Camogie of how they can grow the game. So even opportunities of pitches, warm showers, food after training, mileage expenses, that's the reality, sadly, is in 2025. A lot of inter-county players aren't getting that. So to narrow that gap would be a good start. And yeah, as I say, just having a vision for something bigger than just myself. You know, we haven't talked about planting seeds for trees that you mightn't actually sit under the shade of, but you know you've left an impact for other people to benefit. And as I go back to that young boy and girl who go down to their local GA club, and if you're a father or mother and you take them down and all of a sudden you send off your young son and daughter and they go down to the same pitch and know that they're going to get the same opportunities. Like Lynn spoke about opportunities, that's the big thing for me. Whether people go off and do anything with their sport, that's up to them, but give them an opportunity where they can progress in a system that allows them to flourish.
For you, when you were playing male allies, did Did they support you, Lynn? Looking back, are you a bit frustrated maybe they could have supported a little bit more, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, like as I said, our technical director at the time was a guy. He was wonderful, and like he taught us our game, you know. So when I look at that, that's incredible. And it's so hard because no, like there weren't a lot of guys. There definitely wasn't players, for example, that could see it, or coaches or anything like that. And you look at them and you just think, you could say, you know, they're busy just being national players and they're focusing on their game, as all international players do. However, I had a recent, really interesting conversation with Donogh O'Callaghan, who was a player at the time as I was, and there was one instance where we were both playing the Six Nations, and we both happened to have the last Six Nations game in Wales, and we both finished. And the boys were in their hotel and they had a big function, and we didn't have a function, but we happened to be out on the town, and we went to the hotel, and there was like, you know, we had to kind of hustle our way in, you know, and that wasn't just trying to be close to the boys, believe me at all, you know, you're just on a night out at the end or whatever. But it was just really, you know, when you look at it, it's just not nice. You know, it was just horrible to think that, like Donogh said to me, he said, we should have stood up for you that night. Like, I think it was Gervin Dempsey came out to us, and one or two of us were trying to get taxis home, and they, you know, he waited with us to get a taxi home, and that was lovely. But was it lovely? It just shouldn't have happened. You know, I think that's the point. So at the time you're going through it, and you just have this baseline level of operating that you think that's as good as you are, but it's not at all, you know. So I think we didn't. No, there were some really good, like Paul O'Connell was great at the time, but these were kind of peers that probably saw the world of rugby through the same lens, saw that we were training really hard, was training beside us. And I think that's the thing, when you strip it all back, when you're just training as athletes, boys and girls are the same, and they treat each other the same. I think when you're removed from that, you don't at all. John Hayes was a great advocate at the time, but I suppose I'm trying to call out the supportive males that were there, but equally there's a hell of a lot that weren't there too. But I think things are changing to a degree, but to Conor's point, the need for better representation is to avoid groupthink and unconscious bias and so on. And you know, we hear a lot of people talking about, oh God, you know, I've got daughters now, and there's some criticism around that too. You know, you should say you don't have to have a daughter or a niece to be able to see the world through their lens. But I think there's a reality that, you know, when you have a daughter or a niece or a sister that is going through it, you see their day, you see their week, you see their month, and you see that that's not the same as mine if I'm a boy, and you see what they come home with sometimes, and you see, I have a 7-year-old daughter, and she went to rugby, and she plays a few different sports. We just try her out in a few things, and I sat her down one day, and I was just like, hey, just tell me what she liked doing during the week and stuff. And she said, oh, hey, look, I'd like one a little bit less. And I could see that she was kind of looking at me, and she was like, oh, I just like rugby a little bit less. And I was like, okay, even though my heart was dying, but I just said, oh, how come? And she said, just nobody looks like me. And I was like, okay, oh my God, okay, don't cry, you know. And then I was like, oh, and she just said, oh, I just don't feel welcome. And I'm like, you're seven, how do you even know what the word welcome means? And I think when you're going through it, when you're seeing little kids going through that, you're just like, there's so much we can do better, you know. So I think once there's more of that, and there's more understanding of the reality of groupthink, that if we're all look the same, then why are we all in that room? There should just be one person in that room that thinks the same and looks the same, and the rest of us should be different, because we're going to make, you know, a good collective decision that's right for what we're doing, and that's obviously the goal. But yeah, plenty to go yet.
I'm just keen to talk as well, and before we finish up, just about rugby, and you mentioned earlier on, Bevan, about that's one of the things you love about it, that it welcomes so many people, different sizes, different shapes. Not everybody looks the same. When we have a problem at the moment with so many girls dropping out of sport, and so many girls not transitioning from sport from primary school to secondary school, and they talk about their body image and they're very self-conscious about that, what do you say to those girls, and the hope and advice for them to stay involved in playing rugby and in playing sport?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a real life issue that people deal with at every level of sport, no matter if you're playing in your local club or playing at the elite level. It's definitely something that I know, like, my teammates deal with and loads of people do. So I think it's trying to shift your mindset of not how I look, but like how do I perform. And you know, we talk a lot about our fighting weight and stuff like that you don't find it, it finds you, and you play your best rugby, and then whatever you look like when you're doing that, it's about how you perform and how you feel in your body, and it's not about how you look. It's definitely a hard thing to navigate, especially when you're young, and maybe if you're growing up and there's lots of, you know, media is growing, which is brilliant, and we want that, but it does put extra pressure on how you look and things like that. So it's a real life issue, and initiatives and projects like the Adidas Breaking Barriers, they make sport a safer place to be, and they put so much research into, you know, making it accessible and equitable, and her sport as well, like showing all different shapes and sizes, and not just, you know, picking aesthetically pleasing photos. It's sport is ugly sometimes, and showing that side of it too it's just real life. So I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers. I definitely don't, but yeah, it's definitely a real life issue, and it deserves to, you know, get its time in the limelight and in media.
I'm going to finish up with some predictions. Conor Tyrone this year, new manager, Malach your work. Everyone's talking about Sam Maguire already.
Well, we're going to win the night, so that's a good start. Derry had one over us for a couple of years, but there's a bit of buzz and excitement definitely within the camp, and with the new rules and the sort of quality players we have, some older boys coming back and new boys coming through. We're ambitious, that's what I'll say.
Okay, so put it down for Tyrone for Sam this year then. Lynn, you're starting your career. Yeah, I mean, there's so much, or not new career, but your new role in your career, but there's so much to look forward this year with the World Cup coming up as well. Open that crystal ball. How are we going to do?
Oh dear. Look,
with Bevan beside you here.
Everybody backs the girls, and I think they're definitely on the crest of a wave, and more to come. I think, you know, what we want to do from a union point of view is to really drive the fan engagement piece this year. We really want to really latch onto what we're trying to do, you know, in rugby, like we're trying to do in soccer and Gaelic games, is to get women and men supporting what we're trying to do, the movement of it. So we want the event in Cork and in Kingspan for the Six Nations, all of the warm-up games for the girls in the build-up to the World Cup, for girls and men and boys and little girls to go and to know that it feels different, you know, to it be a family-friendly environment whereby you go and you know that this is different to a boys' game. So, you know, that's kind of what we want to try and do, and hopefully that kind of support off field, that 24th man, woman off field will allow the girls to go as far as they can in the World Cup.
And Bevan, final words with you. There's lots to look forward to.
Yeah, I think with the girls beating the Black Ferns and then them being in our pool, I think it's just given us so much belief that, you know, anything is possible, and the growth that the girls have had over the past few campaigns has been immense, and I've no doubt that it's going to stay going in that direction. So I've had people come up to me saying that they've booked work off until the World Cup final, so there's no pressure, but no, I've full belief that the girls can go all the way.
Yeah, well, we all here wish you so much luck for the year ahead. Please give a warm round of applause once more to Conor, Bevan and Dee.
I mentioned at the start that we feel like we're only getting started, and we truly believe that 2025 will be a pivotal year for her sport. Many people know and love us for our dedicated coverage of female athletes, but her sport is so much more than that. Visibility is just one piece of the puzzle. We think about every stakeholder and influence that has shaped where we are today and how they can contribute to meaningful, tangible change. We believe education is key to changing the game at every level of sport, which is why we're delivering workshops in schools, clubs and businesses nationwide, equipping people with the tools, knowledge and confidence to create a better future. November 2024 marked an exciting new chapter with the launch of the Her Sport Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to funding athletes and teams, supporting education and advocating for national change. It's a multifaceted approach that will allow us to make even greater impact. While we're proud of everything that we've achieved over the last 5 years, our ambition and determination continues to grow. We hope that everyone here tonight and those watching from home share our drive to break barriers and create that long-lasting change. To our title sponsor, Lidl, Your 3-year commitment to the Her Sport Awards means so much. From our first conversation, your passion and energy were clear, and we're excited for the journey ahead, knowing that there are so many more ideas to deepen our impact and leave a lasting legacy in Ireland. To our incredible partners, Gym Plus, Linwoods Health Foods, BPerfect Cosmetics, Aya, Energia and Adidas, thank you for shining a light on these phenomenal athletes. A special thank you to Sport Ireland, Commission Naman and UCD. This wouldn't be possible without you. To our incredible audience with us here tonight in UCD and to those at home, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the fantastic celebrations. Lastly, please join me in a final round of applause for the nominees and winners of the 2024 Her Sport Awards presented by Lidl. Good night.